Okay, good morning, everyone. It's Michael here from Digital Schoolhouse. I hope everyone's had a nice weekend. Thank you for logging back in for another session on with Digital Schoolhouse's kind of games design and development scheme. This week, we're going to be doing something new. We're going to be moving away from some of the technical things that we've done in previous sessions. And for this week, we're going to be focusing on much more of the kind of design and advertising kind of side of computer games. So I hope that you're looking forward to that. Now, before I continue much further, I would like to just point out that today, you obviously always need a piece of paper with me, you need a pen, but what might be really useful today, guys, is if you can, go and get hold of some colouring pens or perhaps some coloured pencils or just something that you can use today in order just to add a bit of colour to your work, okay? Because that will really help. Now, it's not absolutely vital. You don't have to have any colouring pens or pencils, but it might be really useful for you to have them today because they'll add a bit more flavour to what we're going to produce. If you're not working with pencil and paper, what you can do instead is you can perhaps use Paint if you're using a Microsoft computer, or something similar like Sketch or something like that, so that you can produce all of these designs that we're going to work on today using some form of design software. Paint is fantastic for this task. And again, if you haven't got access to that kind of thing at the moment, that's fine, because you can just keep to the paper and pencil and then hopefully some colors. I'm going to give you just 1 or 2 minutes just to run away and go and grab some colors if that's what you need to do. And then we're just going to continue and crack on through today's session. So guys, what is Eco Gamer all about? What are we going to be working on together this week? Well, this week's actually obviously usually broken into a Monday session, Wednesday session, and Friday session, okay? And what you can see on your screens now is a kind of overview of everything that we're going to be doing this week together, okay? Today, we're going to be looking at brand identity and how we can design and create a particular flavor or character or personality for a particular computer game, so that we can communicate that computer game effectively to potential customers or people that users that are going to play our game. And yeah, we can make sure that if we've produced a computer game of some sort, we've got those skills that we need in order to brand and sell that particular computer game, okay? Also, we're going to look at carbon footprints, and we're going to look at some of the considerations needed when designing environmentally friendly packaging. So on Wednesday session, we're going to look at actually going forwards to design some packaging for this computer game. And then what we're going to look at on Friday is going forward to thinking about our audience and purpose when designing social media campaigns and how we can actually create a social media campaign for a specific platform. All of this going to be referring to the exact same game that we're going to discuss today. But just to give you an idea, guys, we're looking at brand identity, packaging, and then some of the advertising things that we can do for our particular game going forwards. Again, as I've said lots and lots of times before, guys, if you're not really into computer games or the game industry isn't something that you can see yourself working in, particularly at this stage in time, that's absolutely fine, because any of these skills that we work on with regards to branding, design, and communications are hugely useful across a hugely broad spectrum of creative roles. And lots of things, if you work in a kind of large business doing this type of stuff, you'll find yourself dabbling or at least working in some of these areas at some points of your careers in the future. So it's really, really useful for everybody. Okay. So following the success of Football Manager 2020's environmentally friendly packaging, Sega would like you to design a social media campaign that will raise the awareness of how packaging can be designed to be more planet friendly. based around limited edition packaging you designed for their new game, Planet Simulator. Okay, so Planet Simulator, really, guys, is everything that we're going to focus on for the beginning of this task. What is Planet Simulator? What does it all mean? And what are we going to do with Planet Simulator? Well, we're going to go into more detail about that in a little while. But for the time being, let's just talk about really what branding is and what types of things we're expecting to see if we were to then go ahead and start branding a new particular computer game. Okay. The best way for me to show you what's expected with regards to branding, guys, is by talking about brand identity, but then looking at another computer game, at the way in which that forms brand identity, so we can use what we've learned about another computer game in order to then move forwards and start designing a brand identity for Planet Simulator. Okay, so brand identity is the collection of all elements that a company creates to portray the right image to its consumer. Okay, now that's actually quite a vague definition of what I would describe brand identity as. I would say that brand identity is essentially the personality or the character or the image that's conveyed in any way, through any means of communication, through any design decision of that product, all the way up to its pricing strategy and stuff like that. Okay, brand is the personality or the character that we give to a particular company or a particular product. Okay, so if I was to say the Nintendo Switch, that has a particular brand identity. We'd all be able to say what the differences are between a Nintendo Switch and an Xbox One. Not only are they different types of hardware that have slightly different capabilities. For example, the Switch has a screen, the Xbox One goes onto a television or monitor. But you'd also be able to tell me what kind of personality does the Nintendo Switch have compared to an Xbox One, or perhaps compared to a PlayStation 4. Well, the Nintendo Switch is known, because of Nintendo, to be something that is perhaps more family oriented, or perhaps something that has better kind of RPGs, but perhaps PlayStation 4 could take that title. Perhaps the Nintendo Switch is amazing because it's got the whole collection and host of Nintendo characters that people enjoy. For example, Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon, and things like that, which again traditionally are aimed at a younger audience to what perhaps PlayStation 4's games of Grand Theft Auto or God of War are aimed to an older audience. So brand identity is all about the character or the personality of a particular service, company, or product. Okay, and it's brand identity that we're going to talk about a little bit today and try to form a new brand identity for the game that we're being asked to design for. Okay, now before we continue, I just want to introduce three main words today, and then we're going to discuss some of those words and look in a little bit more detail on how we're going to go about then designing our own kind of brand identity for the game that we're being asked to design for. What I've got for you right now are just three elements of branding that we're going to look at more specifically. We have a game tagline. So, for example, for the game of Football Manager, which we'll look at in more detail in a second, you've got the tagline of your club, your way. Okay, which again, as a football manager, you're talking about being able to manage your particular football club in the way that you think is best. Okay, so Football Manager is all about giving the user or the player total freedom to manage their football team in a way that's kind of meaningful to them, but also in a way that is kind of realistic in that simulation that game creates. If you guys remember, maybe a couple of lessons ago, I was talking about how one of the goals of computing and computer games is to simulate the real world. Football Manager is a fantastic example of Sega trying to simulate the actual real world of football management and football gaming. Okay. We can see here we've got the game logo, which is just a white, very bold, very stark, very square Football Manager against a black background. Okay, stands out really clearly, very easy to read, very neat, very concise. And then we've got our color scheme that we're looking at through Football Manager as well. And we'll look at how that's developed through time also. But here we've got some really deep, purples, some kind of lush turquoises, and some yellows in order to contrast those colder colors. Okay, we've also got lines and stripes and blocks as well, which gives a kind of very clean, very modern feel to this particular branding for this particular computer game. So let's have a little bit more of look in detail at Football Manager's branding, and then we can start talking about those elements that we can take away to start helping us design our own game for Eco Gamer. Okay, so let's have a little bit of a bigger or wider look at this thing. So here we go. Here's a better screen of Football Manager against their purple that they use for their background, some of their colors on either sides. And let's have a look at some of their covers, their game covers that they've had throughout the years. So here, guys, we're looking at a game of Football Manager, which actually started, or Sega started releasing. The first one was 2005, Football Manager 2005, which looks like it was a PC game. Okay, and now every single year since, they've produced a very, very similar front cover, but slightly updated it for modern tastes. Okay, slightly increased or made it easier to read or more impactful, or changed the color scheme in order for it to stand out against its predecessors. Personally, having a look, I like Football Manager 2010. I think that's a really lovely design. Football Manager 2011 is very clear. You can see on lots of these front covers, guys, at least on 10, 11, and 12, you've got the Nike logo on the front of their game, which means that Football Manager and Sega were able probably to generate some money from Nike for having done some advertising for Nike for them. Okay. Also, having Nike there gives their brand a little bit more, perhaps we call it brand equity, or perhaps it just gave their brand more power or strength, because you're taking something that you associate with football and a good branding sporting as Nike, and you're connecting that with Football Manager, giving it more emphasis, kind of believing that Football Manager is going to be a really good game. So these particular communications essentially are really, really fantastic, and they're showing us, this is what we're going to look at on Wednesday session, on how we can then go forwards to design a particular front cover for the game that we're being asked to develop for. Okay. Now, I'm just going to shoot through a lot of this because this is kind of really going to apply itself more to next lesson. But I just wanted to show you some of the branding around Football Manager, okay? Because it's this type of thing that we're looking to produce for ourselves today, okay? Now, what does that mean for us? What are we actually designing for, and how are we going to do it? Well, before we go any further, guys, on your paper, or perhaps on Paint, if you've got something like that open, what I'd like us to do today, guys, is just by start, and we're just going to begin today's session by creating a mind map, okay? Because mind maps are fantastic ways to come up with ideas, but also to link those ideas so that they stay cohesive as a larger kind of form or grouping of ideas together, okay? So what I'm going to do, guys, is just start in the middle with Planet Simulator. And we can use this document that we create really throughout the rest of this project, because what the ideas that we come up with and storm today are going to be really useful for us throughout this entire project. Okay, so start just with Planet Simulator in the middle, and today we know that we're focusing almost exclusively on branding. For those of you that don't know, branding is actually a word that was used to describe using a hot iron kind of shape or mark called a brand, and a farmer would traditionally heat that up and then burn that into one of their cattle's skin, so that that cattle was marked as having been owned by a particular farmer or owner of land. Okay, so to brand would be to burn a particular mark onto something in order to identify that cattle normally as owning to a particular owner, belonging to a particular owner. But now we just use it as a general term to describe giving something some form of mark or personality to show that it belongs to a particular owner, and to give it its own identity as well. It's adapted and changed as we've gone forwards and become more sophisticated at selling things. And then within that, guys, the three things that we're going to look at creating today are going to be the logo. Okay, we're going to design a logo. We're going to design the color scheme. And we're going to design the tagline for this game. Okay, so hopefully, guys, what you've got so far is simply the beginning of some ideas for Planet Simulator. We've got one node coming off on a branch called branding, and then we've got three nodes or sub nodes coming from this branch called logo, color scheme, and tagline. Okay, because it's on these three things that we're going to focus on today. So where do we begin? Now, what we're going to be asked to do today is to really just come up with some ideas for a particular computer game. But if we want to produce anything for this game, we just need to understand really what this game's all about. We need to understand where we're going with this game, what the game's all about to play. So let's have a little look at a specification for this game to see if we can get a better idea of what we need to make. Okay. So what you should now be able to see, hopefully, guys, is a specification, in essence, a specification on what this game, Planet Simulator, is all about. Now, this is a very brief design document, and it's normally a highly detailed document that's used by the development team throughout the game development process. But essentially, what we've got, guys, is just one screen that's sharing all of that most important information about what Planet Simulator is and kind of what decisions we need to be able to take with our design for this particular campaign. Okay, so who is the audience of this game and who will play it? Well, in essence, guys, this is aimed at children aged 7 and over. It's got a PEGI rating of 3, which means, in essence, it would be okay for a 3-year-old to use this. There won't be anything inappropriate for that 3-year-old. However, it's aimed to go towards children aged 7 and over. Okay, both boys and girls who are interested in the environment and ways that we can become more environmentally friendly. Now, what Planet Simulator is helping us to simulate are the ways in which we can run our planet and the kinds of effects that might take place as a result of running our planet in different ways. What is the aim of the game? What is it about? Well, by changing various properties in the game environment, such as the number of cars allowed on the road, whether people are allowed to take flights, and how many people in the country are vegan, Planet Simulator will use this data to create a prediction of what the planet will look like as a result of these changes. Okay, so what we're looking at, guys, is essentially a football manager game, except we're no longer managing a football team, we're actually managing a planet. Okay, so you can think of it in those terms if you'd prefer. Now, is there a main character to the game, or what does it do? No, the player interacts directly with each of the countries and the properties they can change within these. Okay, so in essence, I suppose that the only real character in the game is yourself, and you're almost playing this almost godlike, or perhaps this emperor of the planet, where you can make all of these decisions about the best ways in which you think are to run, or the worst ways to run this particular planet. Okay, how do you win the game or move on to the next level? Well, there's no next level aim of the game, but is to survive the longest with the lowest amount of damage to the environment. So if the environment becomes too damaged by the properties set, then the human race will die out and the game will restart. So in essence, I guess there's no next level to this, but it's essentially a survival game where you're making decisions where you're trying to prolong the life of this planet, or at least the human race, for as long as possible. Okay. How does the game end? Well, there's no end as such, but there's an optimal set of properties which allow for the best future. Okay. At this point, the credits will roll, but the player can choose to continue to make changes the way they see if they can improve even further on their settings. So I suppose there is a kind of goal in sight, which is to last a certain amount of time, or to create a certain level of sustainable or ecological world. In which the credits will roll. But I suppose as well, potentially, if you were to destroy the planet by making unwise decisions or short-term decision making, you could end up seeing the credits that way if you were to have a game over, in theory. Okay. And what are the main rules of the game? To change the properties to see what effects it has on various parts of the environment, different animal species, acidity of the sea, amount of rainfall, melting of the polar ice caps, etc. Okay, so the main rules of the game, in essence, I suppose, are going to be having properties that you're in control of, and you're going to see how that will affect different elements of the environment. So really, really fun and interesting stuff. I think that personally, although being environmentally friendly and ecology typically isn't something that I'm particularly passionate about, this game does actually sound quite fun because you can just experiment with some of these ideas and I suppose quite quickly see what the outcomes would be of some of this decision making. Okay, so what do we need to do? What is our next task? Well, what you can see here, guys, is a sheet which shows how we're going to generate some of the brand identity. We've got a game logo, game tagline, and color scheme, which are the three things that I've actually already written down with you guys as well. Now, what I'd like us to do, guys, is start thinking about how we can go about designing and creating each of these things for our particular game of Eco Gamer. Okay. Now, what I would like to do before we continue, guys, is start thinking about the themes, or almost making a kind of compounding what we've learned through this specification about this game for children aged 7 and over who are interested in the environment, changing properties within this game to see what the effects are on the environment, the game being a survival based game. Okay, so what we're going to do, guys, is actually start writing down our ideas. Now, what might they take shape as, or what might they look like? So what I'm going to do, guys, before we go into any of our brand design, I'm going to start looking at themes. So on your sheet, guys, it'd be good if you could start discussing themes. What are the themes of Planet Simulator? Well, one of the themes is survival. Okay. One of the themes is playing as playing as God, perhaps, or at least playing as some form of emperor, or perhaps just the manager of the planet. It's your world, okay? It seems like this is your planet, which you are going to run the way that you see fit. What other themes have we got? We've obviously got the environment. And almost there's a conflict here between the environment versus humans. Is this a conflict between humans and the environment? Or perhaps this is just a matter of the environment versus industry? Perhaps. Again, I'm using question marks because I've not decided if that's the case. And also, why can't it be both? Also, why can't it be other things? All right. What I'd like us to do, guys, and I'd like you guys to do at home, I'm just going to continue this, but working in silence. I'd like you just to spend a couple of minutes looking at some of the themes of this particular game. What I'm going to do before I reshare what I've done is I'm just going to go back to that specification, guys, that you guys can see on your screens now. And I'll let you just start writing up some of the themes, perhaps some of the things that could happen, just generate some general kind of ideas for this Planet Simulator game so that you're able to come up with better ideas with regards to your branding. Okay, so come up with some more ideas on this part of your work for me, please, guys. And just to interrupt, guys, even if that means just going back to this screen where we've got our specification on Planet Simulator and just taking some more things out of it. So, for example, one of the survival or elements here, I'm just going to make a note generally and say that take that main rule of the game section. Okay, so we change properties to see the effect. On Earth. I prefer to say what are the effects of this on Earth, really, rather than just the environment, because the environment always seems a bit abstract to me, a bit separated from the fact that what we're talking about here, guys, is Earth. You know, what are the effects of changing different properties on everything to do with our planet? So here it's listed different animal species. Yeah. Acidity of the sea. Rainfall. Ice caps. Or temperature. What other things do we see as part of global climate change? We see droughts. And just generally, we see extreme weather conditions, don't we? For example, storms. Just a couple more minutes, guys, coming up with ideas that represent what this game is all about if you were to make it yourself. Okay, guys, so I've given you a few minutes just to come up with some kind of more ideas or themes for that particular computer game. Let's have a little look at my ideas just to talk through why I've chosen certain things and you know where my thinking is with regards to this Planet Simulator game. So I've spoken about one of the elements of this game perhaps being about survival. Okay, I've said humans versus animals. Do we create a game in which we prioritize the survival of human beings, or do we prioritize the survival of particular species of animal, or both? Do we want everyone to survive? Do we have extinction rates? Perhaps if there are certain numbers of animals that have become extinct from your management of the planet, maybe you get a game over if too many animals become extinct. Population of numbers. Maybe if you've got 7 billion human beings to look after, you get a game over if half of them die, or maybe you get a game over if all of the human beings die. Maybe that's your responsibility to make sure you're looking after the population. I've also said on here, guys, maybe this is measured in time. So how many centuries can you make the world live for? How many millennia can you help the world live for? I've also put on it just for something fun. Maybe there's an alien invasion at some point. Again, it doesn't have to stick completely to the brief. This is just the idea generation stage. And remember, guys, when we were talking about idea generation in the previous lesson, we're talking about just iteration or repeating different ideas to see which ones come on top. Themes, when I've said that we are God or the emperor or the manager of the planet, okay? Are we managing the industry? Are we in control of farming and education and wealth? Will there be war between these nations? I know that one of the biggest kind of factors that stops the planet turning around and becoming a lot more green very quickly is the fact that there's competition between nation states, and it's often seen to slow down in your industry if you are to become more green. And therefore, that's one of the biggest kind of challenges that anything green has, is the kind of competition between nation states. Themes and ideas. So maybe there's a grade for your achievement. Maybe you get a grade from, A, B, C, D, E, and F, or maybe S is super special grade. You've done really well. Or perhaps you get high scores that can be published online, or you can take screenshots of how fantastic your Earth looks and share them online on online leaderboards. As more ideas, is this about the environment versus the human beings? Okay, can you actually get some type of achievement for totally decimating your planet, but having lots and lots of powerful human beings that have taken all of the natural resources? Or are we looking at this as a kind of balance instead? Are we trying to make sure that we maintain the status of this planet at the same time as trying to keep the human beings on the straight and narrow? Because there is also an argument for the fact that we could help this environment survive of ours if we were to get rid of all the human beings altogether, because we're one of the most dangerous things on this planet. And then we could have the idea of the environment versus big industry as well. Which of these two things should prevail, and what might that look like for your scores? And then finally, guys, I've just listed some of the extra things from the specification, but I've just said that, we change properties to see the effects on Earth. I've come up with the idea of farming, education, and health, and industry, etc. But this has mentioned that different animal species, the acidity of the sea, rainfall, the polar ice caps, or the temperature. We've got droughts and extreme weather conditions that we see as a result of our changing planet. So all of these factors, guys, are hugely, hugely important for us when considering and thinking about how we're going to go about designing our computer game, okay? Now, what we're being asked to do today is to really look at some of those branding elements, okay? And we're going to take some of the ideas that we've stormed on this side, or kind of the mind map that we've expanded on this side of our Planet Simulator mind map. And we're going to start looking at some of these branding considerations. Now, where do we want to start? Well, to be honest, it doesn't really matter upon which one of these things we start at. If we begin on logo, we're going to begin just designing things in black and white anyway, so color scheme's not going to affect the logo specifically, but we could look at color scheme and what types of things do we like as a Planet Simulator set of colors, or a tagline as well, which might link closely to the logo. What types of things are we going to say about Planet Simulator so that people very quickly get the idea of what this game's all about, and how are we going to show what the personality of this particular game is to our potential customers? Well, I think where I'm going to start, guys, and again, you can start on any of these three things, but something that's going to be very, very simple to me to think about to begin with is logo. And logo is a really nice place to start. And actually, it's probably the more challenging out of those three things to come up with a good version of as well. So what I'm going to do, guys, I've got a lovely large piece of paper here. But again, if you're on Paint, crack on where you need to go on Paint in order to continue your designing on paint. If you're doing this on paper, just find another piece of paper or some extra space, because this is going to take a bit of room. But fundamentally, guys, we're going to come back to that principle that we had upon iteration, which was to design lots and lots and lots of different versions of the same thing, and then taking elements that we like from different versions of those in order to come up with the best version of this logo that we can. Okay. Now, at this point, guys, don't forget that we are expected to log on to Menti. We are expected in order to kind of register ourselves with the name of our school and the our own personal name, so that we can have a chance of winning one of the prizes at the end of this week. So before we continue, guys, make sure you're going onto menti.com and putting in the code 5775522 Really, really important that you guys do that. Also, just to kind of hope that it can help, if you do have any particular questions or good ideas that you'd like to share, please do put them on there as well, so that I'll be able to engage with them later on. Okay. But for the time being, I'm just going to go through a couple of ideas with regards to my Planet Simulator, and then we can go from there. Okay. So we've got Planet Simulator. What types of logos or ideas might we have? Well, fundamentally, guys, I think a good place to start, at least from my idea number one, might be to draw a planet. That sounds to me like that's essentially the focus of this game. Okay, so there's a globe of some sort. Maybe we can, and I'm just drawing this small, guys. You might not be able to see this very clearly. Perhaps that's for the best, but I'm just going to have a quick go at making the general outline of what our planet might look like. So this is our planet from the perspective of Europe and the Americas and the Atlantic Ocean. I'll be honest with you, if I was to try and draw the Pacific and Asian side, I probably wouldn't have as much luck. I'm more used to seeing this side of the map. So maybe that could be one of my logo designs. Maybe number two, I could have the same thing. Maybe I could write Planet Simulator around that. Well, I've just had an idea. Stealing a little bit from another simulator that we've all hopefully played or at least seen before, called The Sims. Maybe we could have that planet as the dot for the eyes, so Planet Sim, or maybe just to build upon that idea. We could have something like that. That's not a very good circle, is it? It's okay. These are just ideas. So then maybe we could have this planet here instead, like that. Maybe the whole thing can be above Sim or Simulator. What I'm going to do, guys, again, just as I have before, I'm going to continue working through ideas here on the side of the page. I'd like to get to at least 10, but really you're looking at having a much better design concept if you go through maybe 20, all the way up to 30, okay? But I wouldn't expect that from today's session. But what I'm going to do, guys, is give us kind of 5 minutes just to work through some of these ideas and see what we can generate and come up with. I'm going to continue on your screens, but I'd like you to continue to do the same in your own time, on your own piece of work. One thing I thought I'd share with you guys, because I've just been looking online for some inspiration for more ideas that I could potentially use for logos. I've just done a quick Google search, and there's all sorts of different online tools that you can use in order to help you come up with your own kind of logo designs. Just to name a few, I've had a quick look, and here's one called canva.com, which you can come up with a logo maker. Looks really, really cool. It looks free to use to begin with. And again, you can go through color palettes where it suggests different colors, different fonts that you can use, which looks really, really cool. It looks like lots of other people have used this kind of thing before. So we can have a look at design, for example. Another really, really good one that I've heard of before, guys, and this is a fantastic resource. It's called Adobe Spark. This is, if you, again, just search for logo maker in Adobe Spark, this can help you to go through and start making different logos for the types of things you might be interested in. Okay, so different types of logos can be an image or text or combination of both. Again, it has how to make a logo, choose your elements, choose before professionally designed photo ideas, develop the design icons and text color. Okay, so we can start now for free, and we can start going through making your own logo. Okay, so really, really interesting stuff there from Adobe Spark. And again, there's another logo maker website here as well, which again helps you pick different images that represent the particular things that you're going after as well. One thing I liked about Canva is when you first get onto it, you can put in your company name. So if I put in Planet for this game and say it's a computer game, you know, it gives me kind of other ideas of particular computer games or computer game companies that it's helped design before as well. So as a starting point for different kind of inspiration as well. It's a really, really cool thing that you might want to use to help you guys come up with your own ideas. If that's not what you're after, fundamentally, guys, I can just search for Planet logo. And then if I go to image results, I can perhaps find some different, there we go, there's a lovely Planet logo there. The final thing I'm going to give to you guys and talk about, which is a really, really cool website, it's called the Noun Project. Okay. And again, this is free icons for everything. You can use these icons from this website, often as long as you credit them and say that you know where you've got them from. They're absolutely fine to use in any of your designs. So let's search for a planet. Okay, let's see what comes up. Brilliant. So there's all sorts of different planets that have come up. This is the kind of thing that I was looking at earlier that I liked the look of, was, you know, this type of Earth that we could use as part of our logo design. So that looks like a piece of Europe, Africa, and South and North America there. What else have we got? Maybe I could refine my search better and say Earth. What logos might there already be for Earth? So maybe that kind of thing, which stands out quite clearly. Oh, hello. Just seen one I like the look of there. This one links beautifully with the kind of the brief that we've got, guys, which is linking the idea of a plant growing out of the half of this Earth segment. So, you know what? Lots of design ideas are fundamentally stolen and borrowed and taken from other places. We no longer talk about inventing, we talk about innovation in industry, because that's a fancy word for stealing other people's ideas. So I'm just going to steal that idea myself. I'm just going to take a little copy of that. And by no means does that have to be the final version, but that can be a version of a particular design that I'm interested in continuing. Yeah, I really like that. That was really cool. Are there any similar ones at the bottom? Look here, we've got a hand caring or nurturing the earth. That's a nice idea. I'm gonna innovate that. And again, that hand almost looks like the iconography for kind of liking and sharing on social media platforms, doesn't it? So again, it's got this modern kind of twist, perhaps. Oh, I've just drawn that. My drawing is absolutely hideous, but that's all right. We don't need to be an artist to do this stuff, guys, okay? We just need the ideas. We can then hand over to them artists in order to create the good versions of these things. We're just the idea people. What else? What else have we got? What else can we have a look at? What about simulator? What kind of ideas come up from a simulator or a sim? Yes, you've got this idea of the arcade machine, I suppose. And I suppose more generally, guys, that computer games are simulators. In essence, all of them are simulators of some sort, aren't they? So here we've got a controller, which is a nice logo or simple design of a control. I'll tell you what, I think I've got my idea that I like the sound of already from just doing this small bit of research on the Noun Project website. And I think I'm actually going to start combining some of these things to see if I can generate my idea. So I'm going to stop sharing that, guys, but I'm also going to put on my screen so you guys can see it at home that in my design, I'm just going to write up here in quite big, bold letters, Noun Project. Fantastic place for looking for icons, okay, things that we can describe by using nouns. I think I've got one of my ideas, so I'm going to start creating that down here. Just a couple more minutes on this task, guys, I think. And for those of you using your computers at home, you can perhaps just copy and paste some of those icons that we've just found in order to incorporate into your own design page. Okay, they're all ideas. You don't need to use them as the main thing. It's not stealing, just use them as ideas to begin with. You see how easy it is to generate ideas, guys, just once you start really just researching the words that we're being asked to look for. We're looking for planet and we're looking for simulator. I've generated my idea just from searching up the word planet and finding something that's linked to environmentalism or ecology and you know, botany and plant life, and just taken that idea and mixed it with a simulator logo, which was just a controller for a computer game, because that's what this is. It is a computer game. We don't need to hide that fact. It's what it says it is. I'll tell you what I've also always liked is let's search within the Noun Project, and I'll share what I'm doing again. Let's search within Noun Project. Let's look for environmental. Environment. What have we got going on here? That's cool. I like that. That's cool. That's pretty sweet. That's an idea, isn't it? Let's just do a quick sketch of that as well. Maybe that's a version. And again, we've got these kind of social media, cartoony kind of hands, these likey hands that are cradling this planet and looking after it. Also so big that they're almost representing that godlike entity that we spoke about at the beginning, or the emperor, the controller, the manager. Maybe this fits the brief nicely. Yeah, I like that. That's cool. Maybe, guys, what we're finding here are the further elements within our design. So I spoke earlier about perhaps you're in charge of farming, perhaps you're in charge of agriculture. Maybe there's other icons that we can find within that. Okay. So, guys, just to give a kind of finish to the logo design element of today's session, which is the longest, the most drawn out, or takes the most time out of all of the different elements. I'm going to show you what I've got. I kind of like it, actually. I've just combined two ideas that I've taken and innovated those ideas into my own ideas. So here we go. Here's my kind of idea that I like. It's a good starting point. We've got the control, which shows it's some form of simulator that we're in charge of. And again, we're giving a nod to the fact that this is for environmentalism and kind of running this planet in a world in which we're having an impact of what grows on it. So I really like this idea. So I think this is the one that I'm going to roll with. Next task for us to consider and look at, guys, is going to be color scheme, isn't it? So this is the point at which it's really useful if you guys have got colors at home, but you don't have to have any colors at home. What types of colors are we talking about when talking about being environmental? Well, fundamentally, guys, we often just refer to it simply as green, don't we? So what I'm going to do with some of my coloring pens, guys, is just make little marks of green just to start building perhaps a palette that I can use later on. So here's just two greens that I've got available. Easier if you guys are doing this digitally, perhaps using paint. Very, very easy for you to start marking out different colors you might like to use. There's just a few greens that I might like in my overall design, representing, you know, plant life and the vibrancy of the Earth's land masses. Well, also, guys, when we're talking about the environment and looking after our planet, we're also talking fundamentally and really importantly about the blue stuff on our planet as well. So the sea and how we can look after our nature in the sea and how important the sea is for us with regards to, you know, where we get food. Even if you're not a big fan of eating fish, most of the planet live on or close to the sea. When I say on the sea, I mean on a beach or close to the coast. And you know, most of the world's food actually does come from the sea, not farmed like we tend to eat with our beef and chicken and stuff like that in this country. So the impact of these things is hugely important. Well, if I've got these greens and these blues and these cool colors, okay, what types of colors might I want to contrast? So if I've got this green, well, what can I contrast these with as accent colors, perhaps? Because contrast is really important, guys, for making really, really vibrant communications. If we have another look at the Football Manager color scheme, what we've got on there are these deep dark purples and this blue that's not far from it. It's much lighter, but blue and purple are quite close. But then they're contrasted by this bright yellow. So, you know, what colors could we choose to contrast our kind of muted greens and blues with? Well, on the opposite end of the kind of color spectrum, I suppose that we might have, I don't know, a pink or a red. Maybe that could be one of our accent or contrasting colors. Again, I'm just coming up with ideas here. What looks good? What looks good? What works? Do you know, I'd say actually these are perhaps too warm. Perhaps they're too red. And maybe they don't convey really what I'm after. You know, I'd typically say these are passionate, fiery, strong colors. Maybe that's not really what I'm going for with regards to eco. Maybe yellow would be more suitable. Maybe yellow can live there. Or maybe we don't need those tones at all. Maybe we're talking about contrasting with silvers or greys or shinies, or even, guys, there's no harm in considering the use of black. Well, actually, just looking at that briefly, I quite like the idea of the silver, yellow, and black as contrasts to some of these colors for the management of our game. Okay. What I could then go on to do, guys, is just take a brief sketch of, again, the kind of design that I've decided I quite like the look of. Again, this is subject to change. It can continue to change, but for the time being, I've got this idea in my head and I'm going to roll with it. And again, I'm just very, very roughly drawing this out so that we've got time in order to finish it within the next couple of minutes. And you guys can take as much time as you like on your own designs here. But now that I've got some ideas of colors, maybe I could have a look at what that might look like on a version of my logo. So I can take one of those. I like the kind of rich blue here. I can incorporate that on the C. And then I can take one of those more muted greens. Actually, I kind of like that warmer green out of the two, the kind of deeper green, which I think is this one. So I could include that here. Again, I'm not being neat. I'm not being an artist. I'm just putting down some ideas and seeing what they come out like. We can use a different green for this one. One thing I've not represented in my logo design so far is you know, survival. I've not really shown how this is a real challenge for us to try to survive against the pressures or difficulties of running our planet. But again, we're just at the early stages here. It's not a big deal. I've not done that. Some colors perhaps introduced, or some of those accent colors I can introduce on my control, because this is a simulator, guys. Okay, I'm in charge. And again, we can give that a nice, much more bold look. Perhaps using our black in order to pull out some of the details there. Okay. Who knows? I think with time, actually, and a bit more care, I might have an idea there that's worth going with. And that's what it's all about, guys. And we spoke about in previous sessions, is rolling with ideas just to see how they pan out and what types of things you can create and generate. Okay. The last thing we're going to briefly look at, guys, is taglines. So what types of things might we want to say? Well, this is about your world, your choices. Okay. Maybe that would be a tagline: your world, your choice. What types of things do you want to say to kind of go with your idea of Planet Simulator? What 4 words or 3 words could you choose in order to kind of describe what you're going for in your game? Okay. Can they use their own? Can you guys at home, if you want to go through this, use your own game and not Planet Simulator? I've got a question for guys. My answer to that is absolutely. Okay. If you've got an idea of a game that you want to design, and maybe last week you were working on coming up with some of the ideas for that game, I've gone through looking at Planet Simulator, and that's going to help for those people at home that don't have an idea of what computer game they might want to generate. This is just the direction I've gone with Planet Simulator. But if at home, guys, you want to continue working on this stuff, but you're not particularly passionate about Planet Simulator, then absolutely, please do go for your own kind of game, the design that you've decided to go on for any computer game that you're passionate about or any idea you want to roll with. Just to kind of summarize what we've done today, guys, because this set of skills that we've done can apply to any game or idea. yeah, if you've got your own idea, guys, don't do Planet Simulator. Do something different. And I'd love, after the session, guys, for you to work on that and then to click on the link to the Dropbox and to upload your piece of work into Dropbox so that I can see some of the ideas that you've came up with, okay? Be that on Planet Simulator that we've worked on today, or be that your own computer game idea that you've looked at the branding, making sure that you've looked at logos, color schemes, and briefly some taglines as well. I really want you guys to have focused on this area here, but nonetheless, this area was just important for us, guys, just as important for us to kind of expand upon and build upon some of the ideas that we want to incorporate into this particular design, okay? So I've run out of time. I've actually gone a minute over, and I apologize for that, everyone. Just want to say a big thank you for everyone for working so hard through this session. I hope that so far what we've been able to do is look at some of the brand identity of this new game that we've made, either Planet Simulator or any game that you'd prefer to work on of your own kind of idea. Thank you for joining me this morning on Monday. As I said, on Wednesday, we're going to start looking at some of the packaging behind this game idea. Now, please do packaging for Planet Simulator unless you've had time to go through and really come up with some great ideas for your own computer game. But please do go through the process of branding, logo, color schemes, and taglines if possible. Okay. Yeah, really, really important skills. And thank you guys for taking part in that. And I look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday. Cheers.
Thank you for that, Michael. That was a really, really